Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 25th Planning Commission meeting. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you have a cell phone on you, please silence or turn it off. If you're here to speak on an item and you are not the applicant, if you haven't done so already, please fill out one of these forms and provide it to staff down here for your item. When your item is on the agenda, you will be called to come forth to the podium, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. Please provide your name and address for our records. If you're here with a large group of people to speak on an item, we encourage you to elect a single representative to voice all your concerns, and some additional time will be considered for that person. If you speak individually, we ask that you keep your comments to items that we haven't heard from speakers before you. We just limit any repetitious comments for the efficiency of the meeting. And then lastly, on this item, just please direct all your comments and questions to the commission, and then we will ask staff or the applicant's representative to respond accordingly. We appreciate everyone's presence here today. We know that you took time away from work and other obligations, so that we just ask for your assistance in conducting an efficient meeting and holding up the decorum of the meeting. So thank you all, and we're ready for item 2 on the agenda, which is the receipt of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes of the July 27, 2024 meeting.
Do you think that's a typo and it's the June 27th meeting?
June 27th.
But yeah, I have a motion to receive the minutes from the June 27th Planning Commission meeting. Is there a second?
I know, I just read it.
Been seconded by Commissioner Powers as we wait for our system to warm up. There we go. Although it's seconded by Janice. You look a little quick on the trigger there? All right. Just need to vote and fix that later? Okay. There we go. All right. Item 3 is continuance requests.
We have numerous uncontested requests. Item 23, KC 7667, defer to August 8th. Item 24, case CPA 2024-4, defer to August 8th. Item 25, PUD 2006, defer to August 8th. Item 26, PUD 2014, also August 8th, defer. Item 27, case PUD 2024, defer to August 8th. Item 28, case SPUD 1633, defer to August 8th. Item 29, SPUD 1647, defer to August 8th. Item 30, case SPUD 1650, defer to August 8th. Item 31, accessory dwelling unit ordinance, defer to August 22nd. Item 32 is case PUD 2016, defer to August 22nd. Item 33, CPA 23-5, defer to September 12th. Item 34, case C 7621, defer to January 23rd, 2025. Item 35, case CPA 2024-1, defer to January 23rd. Item 36, case PUD 1990, defer to January 23rd. Item 37, case PC 10941 has been withdrawn. Item 38, case PUD 2003 has been withdrawn. And finally, item 39, SPUD 1641 has been withdrawn.
Is there anyone here to speak on any of those items? All right, seeing none, just need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the uncontested requests as read.
hang on. Um, Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. All right, and those items pass. Next is new requests.
There are 4 new requests. Item 13, case SPUD 1651, request to defer to August 8th. Item 22, case PC 10939, continue indefinitely. Item 3, case C7643 has been withdrawn, and item 21, SPUD 1597, has also been withdrawn.
Okay, I do have someone signed up to speak on item 13. Mr. Work?
As Mr. Work is making his way up, Mr. Chairman, I have visited with the applicant and Mr. Work about moving to the August 22nd date, so I just wanted to be clear that I'm in support of that.
Okay.
My address is 105 North Hudson, Suite 304, Oklahoma City. And with regard to SPUD 1651, which is item 13, as Commissioner Pennington just mentioned, the applicant has requested that it be continued until August 8th, and we were simply requesting, I've been contacted by and engaged by a group of residents who live nearby the subject property, and we were requesting that the continuance be until the August 22nd meeting. I understand from my communication with Commissioner Pennington that the applicant is agreeable to that, but that's our request. And we are certainly willing and will engage with the applicant in the interim here to identify and try to resolve any concerns that we have with the proposed SPUD. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Okay, so it sounds like we just need a motion on the new requests amending that item's continuance date.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the new continuance request as read.
We're going to change, with the amendment to change item 13, change that deferral to August 22nd.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Noble to grant the new continuance request as amended. Just need a second. Please cast your votes. And those continuances are approved. All right, item 4 is the consent docket.
There are 3 items on the consent docket. Item 1 is case C7670, final plat of Nichols Creek duplexes. It's a replat, and it is located west of North County Line Road and south of Northwest 122nd Street. Item 2 is case C7671, final plat of Alley North Phase 1, and it is located at the northeast corner of Northwest 13th Street and North Broadway Avenue. Item 3 has been withdrawn.
Is there anyone here to speak on any of the items on the consent docket? Okay, seeing none, just need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent docket as read.
A motion from Commissioner Noble to approve the consent docket as read. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. That item passes. All right, next item are individual items to be heard. Item number 4.
This is case DA 13-PH, application for consideration of a lot split deed approval located at 200 Southwest 80th Street, along with variances to the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you is a lot split that we're seeking to have approved. At the time PUD 846 was written, it did not include the language that lots do not have to have access off an approved public street. That is common language that's included in most office parks, mainly because the drives are accessed through shared parking. And so what we're seeking to do here is create a large lot, and the kind of stub that you see that's dividing the property right off of Crystal Park is going to be a shared private drive that will give access to the lot just to the northeast of that. Thank you, Jared. And that's how that one will be accessed. That lot did not meet legal frontage, which is why we're here requesting the variance. But it will have access off of the access agreement, which that's one of the TEs that we agreed to. Will provide that to the city prior to the filing of deeds and the approval of the lot split. So with that, happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your approval.
Commissioner Newman, this is your ward. You'd like to lead our discussion?
Sure. Did we have anyone signed up to talk?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak on that.
I've read the application, talked with the applicant. It seems fairly straightforward to me. I didn't really have any issues with it. So I didn't, does any of the other commissioners have any comments on it? And you were okay with the TEs, Mark, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If we don't have any further discussion on it, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance to section 3.4.4 C2H for this application.
A motion from Commissioner Newman to grant the variance to section 3.4.4.C2H of the subdivision regulations. And we're waiting. There it is. Second by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. That variance passes.
I'd like to go ahead and make another motion to approve the variance 5.4.2.E.1 for this application.
We have a motion from Commissioner Newman to grant the variance to section 5.4.2E.1 of the subdivision regulations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Now the item.
I'd like to make a motion to approve DA 13-PH, 200 Southwest 80th Street, including the TEs.
I have a motion from Commissioner Newman to approve the item subject to technical evaluations. And seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
I will recuse myself for item 5.
Item 5 is case PUD 1768-SP01, application for a specific plan pursuant to approval of PUD 1768 located at 17800, 17808, 17816, and 17824 Knox Farm Drive.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a specific plan application for the development of a residential-style office park. It is consistent with the PUD. Happy to answer any questions.
This is in my ward, so, yeah, and my only comment is I would approve it if I could.
I'll move to recommend approval of item number 5, PUD 1768 SP01.
We have a motion to approve item number 5, PUD 1768. We need a second.
Waiting on the motion.
We have a motion and a second. And you're approved.
Thank you.
Item 6.
There we go. Item 6 is PUD 1817-SP01, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 1817, located at 19301 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is also a specific plan application. This one is for a medical complex. It is in conformance with the PUD. I would ask for your approval.
Commissioner Noble, this is your ward. Any?
It is. Staff recommended approval. There's no problems with it.
I don't have anyone signed up to speak. So just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve PUD 1817 SB01.
A motion from Commissioner Noble to approve item or PUD 1817 SO1, SP01. It's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Item 7.
Item 7 is case CE 1124, application to close a portion of the east-west right-of-way of Northwest 4th Street, portion of the north-south right-of-way of North Harvey Avenue, and a portion of the east-west alley in Block 47 of the Oklahoma City Original Edition Supplemental Plat.
Good
Paul
afternoon.
LaFever. Good afternoon. Paul LaFever for the applicant. With me today is Richard Dow. He is the applicant. My address is 522 Colcord Drive. This is a request for an ordinance to close a slender piece of the right-of-way that is overlaid by a fairly large brick wall that was put in place almost 24 years ago. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Govine, this is your ward.
Thank you. Yes, we reviewed the application. I think after discussions, if I don't have any issues with this, it's cleaning up a title issue that's a historic concern. The staff has the one TE of providing the survey, which is pretty standard in these easement
We'll accept.
closures, if the applicant's amenable to that.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, then I'd be, unless anyone has any other questions or wants to discuss, okay, I will go ahead and move to recommend approval of item CE 1124.
A motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend City Council approval of item CE 1124. It's
Including the TE as written in the
subject to the
record.
technical evaluations. It's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes. Thank you. Item 8.
Item 8 is case CE 1125, application to close a portion of a north-south utility easement of Lot 4 and Block 6 of the Oak Hollow Industrial Park Addition, south of Southeast 96th Street and east of Polaris Drive.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzel with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. This is a continuation of the development. It's industrial development that's been pretty successful in this area. The owner of this property owns the adjacent land, and the utility easement that was platted is just unfortunately in the wrong spot. There's nothing in it. We're happy to provide the survey. That's one of the TEs, but with that, we ask for your recommendation of approval.
Commissioner Privet,
Yep.
this is your ward.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. Unless we got somebody signed up to speak, I'll move to approve CE 1125.
Motion from Commissioner Privet to
Recommend approval.
recommend approval to City
including the
Council
TE.
of item CE 1125, subject to the technical evaluations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.
This is SPUD 1643, application to rezone 2421 Southwest 112th Street from R1 to SPUD 1643.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an SPUD that is necessary because through an appraisal process, it was discovered that the presence of a second kitchen within this structure technically meant it was a separate dwelling unit. And so in order to complete the appraisal process, we had to come through and rezone it. There are instances like this all over the city that just don't get caught, but the fact that you have a second kitchen under the roof means it's technically a second dwelling. So the SPUD would allow that to be legal under this new zoning. There are no TEs.
Commissioner Newman, this is your ward.
Do we have anyone signed up?
We do have someone signed up.
Okay.
Mr. Brian Bobek.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yes, representing the HOA and our covenants, I wanted to make sure I was clear on this, state that each lot shall be used exclusively for single-family residential purposes, so we have a concern about the rezoning because of that.
Real quick, and I'll get staff to respond to that. Just, can I have your name and address for the record, please?
I beg your pardon, Brian Bobek, B-O-B-E-K, 2401 Marforio Place. That's here in Oklahoma City, 73170.
So,
You know, what's stopping them from creating an ADU out of this PUD? Is there anything you can, you couldn't just build something, you know, and call it an ADU, right?
Well, we don't enforce private covenants.
Yeah.
So as long
Well,
as
that
it's,
too,
if
yeah,
it's
but-
zoned,
yeah.
if it's zoned to allow the SPUD and their covenant doesn't allow it, that would be up to the HOA to
Oh,
enforce
yeah,
their covenant.
I'm not questioning the
So-
covenants, I'm just saying, we're saying this kitchen, like somebody lives in it, is now an ADU. Does that mean, you know, they're allowed to do another ADU?
No.
No, just specifically the kitchen is,
So it's just an additional accessory dwelling, so there's
So,
two
yeah,
dwellings
that-
on one property.
but they could put a
Through the
bed in
PUD.
the kitchen and take the kitchen out and make it an ADU.
Theoretically.
Theoretically,
Yeah, with this zoning.
Right, okay.
So I do want to say, the SPD does have it's a base of R1 single family, so we don't allow multifamily, it's R1 single family. We say all uses within R1, except we allow one accessory dwelling unit, which is what is necessary under the code because of the presence of the kitchen. So we're not allowing multifamily, we're simply allowing the one ADU because of that nuanced rule with the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think that nuanced rule needs to have a good look taken at it, because I think there are Jewish families all over Oklahoma City who have second kitchens if they keep kosher. So, I mean, that alone cannot be.
Plus, my understanding was we're allowing it to exist as it already does. We're not saying that he can rent it to someone separate from the family that already lives there, which that was where it crosses into the HOA territory.
Wouldn't that mean that we are, though?
No.
If we're allowing an ADU, wouldn't it be allowed to be occupied by another?
That's what my
Yeah.
concern, yeah.
Yeah, it would be, just by right.
You'd have a kitchen and then off of that with a bedroom if.
Yeah,
But what here says
not be
that's,
the sole criteria. That just, no sense whatsoever.
The fact that we're even here having to talk about it is what doesn't make any
yeah,
sense.
I thought the whole notion that it does not, we don't enforce HOA guidelines, that they would supersede this and still apply in that situation.
They don't exactly supersede it, we just don't get involved in that.
Okay.
I mean, if they were to rent it separately as an additional dwelling unit, that terminology is a little difficult because it means something specific to us now. But I mean, if it were to become more than one dwelling unit and were separately rented or leased, I think that would have to fall back to the HOA the way it is now. But again, I think we need to take a look at our criteria. The fact that you keep a second kitchen cannot be the sole criteria when there are lots and lots of people who do that.
And it was permitted back in 2006. So I mean, this is not something that was done recently. I mean, 06 is when it was permitted.
Right.
And I don't know, I mean, you know, Ms. Powers' neighborhood, my neighborhood, a lot of the older neighborhoods have garage apartments with kitchens in it. I don't want to really get off on the tangent of, you know, the ADU ordinance, but it is a strange thing that criteria is what elevates it to this other status you have to have.
I'd like to know what the HOA's concerns are.
Absolutely about the just sticking with the covenants. We are concerned about that if it's rezoned, but based on our understanding of rezoning, that it could become multifamily.
Since this is an SPUD, can't we specify that it's still a single-family residence and?
So it still is, it's still zoned R1, it just has an accessory dwelling.
And, I mean, if we need to add some language to make that clear, then let's do it, you know?
The SPUD already says it. It says R1, and it says the R1 district shall be permitted. In addition, one accessory dwelling unit permitted.
Yeah, that language I don't like. I mean, I think the issue here is that it is still a single residence and not an additional dwelling unit.
But it is.
But it is because it has a front door, a separate front door, and a kitchen.
A separate front door.
So it sounds like we don't want it to be occupied. We want to allow this to move forward so that the property owner can go ahead and get their appraisal, but we don't actually want the ADU to be occupied. Is there any
Separately.
language, I guess for the municipal counselor, I mean, any language we could use to say that it
Could
couldn't
be
be?
separately leased or sold? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't,
that,
you know.
that probably gets at it.
I
We
don't
do
know
that?
I don't know that we can do that.
I
don't either.
No,
Yeah, I don't think-
If, the point of this is, once it says that the accessory dwelling unit is permitted, I don't think we can.
I don't like to say
handcuff
that
the
it's an
property
accessory
owner
dwelling
on what
unit.
they're
I mean,
doing.
I think that's the point. We're trying to make that distinction.
Yeah.
We're
I
permitted
had
a second
quite a few conversations this week with staff. I just got back from vacation, so I've been sort of short on this particular topic. But this struck me as, I can't believe that we're resolving this issue by changing zoning. I mean, it seems like an extreme thing to me. I talked with Sarah, she's researched. Sarah, you want to come up here? I know you probably don't, but we have had numerous conversations on this, and I know that it was permitted. No one can seem to find the permit to see if what was actually permitted.
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. We did research, we pulled both a permit for the home, and then there was a 1,000-square-foot add-on done back in 2006. The challenge is that we can't pull the permit to see exactly what was shown inside that extra add-on. We cannot confirm whether, we just don't have a copy of that record.
We don't keep them.
We searched the files, the actual paper files.
Pull the tax card?
So in this case, I think what has happened is the add-on at some point was made into an accessory dwelling or apartment. There is a door, a separate entrance for it, and then as long as it has, eating, sleeping, cooking facilities, that's going to be considered by most to be considered an accessory dwelling. So
But it has all those things. It's not just a separate kitchen. It has eating.
in order
sleeping.
for it to be considered, it would have, yes, and you'd have to be, it's living, sleeping, sorry, what am I missing? Cooking, sanitation, yeah, living, sleeping, cooking, sanitation. It has a separate, entrance. And then as far as our permitting department goes, one of the other factors is that in this case, you have to cross through the garage, which is not considered an air-conditioned space. And so that is one more reason why it may be considered an ADU. Mhm.
Well, it sounds to me like it is an ADU. I mean, that's
Well, I think
bizarre.
I think based on the conversation with staff, is it already is, it was just never permitted that way, and it doesn't sound like it was ever intended to be that way. However, it is that way, and now it's been brought up by them trying to do refinancing. So I'm open to suggestions. I've been wrestling with this.
I have no problem with it. This is how you get an ADU approved, through an SPUD process.
I'm not.
Same. And if they have a private covenant, that is up to them to enforce their private covenant. This is a separate question about
Their
the zoning.
private covenants would be above and beyond,
It's out of our
a separate
purview.
instrument.
Separate issue.
That's the only
That
point,
would
that's the
be
point I was
between
trying
the
to make.
homeowner.
That's between them.
So that would be between the HOA and the homeowner to resolve.
My concern is we say this is how you get an ADU approved, but I don't agree that this is an appropriate location for an ADU.
That's an important question.
So
I mean, if that's what we're looking at here, they've come forward with an application for an ADU, and we're looking at that the way we look at every other application that comes to us, then that's a whole separate thing. Then, oops, we have this separate kitchen. What are we going to do about that,
Is there phrasing that we could use to say we deem the existing structure as conforming with R1 zoning and be explicit that we do not permit an ADU? Could that be allowed? Since, I mean, the issue is the dual kitchens, unless the property owner is intending to use the ADU, like rent it out, you know?
Well, whether it's rented out or just used by, say, your family, it's the same. We need the ability for it to be deemed under the code an ADU.
Yeah, that's why I don't think we can, as a body, just deem it meets R1 standard when it truly doesn't.
Yeah, so so then the question is, do you want it or not? To Rusty's point, Commissioner LaForge's point, is this an appropriate place or not?
I mean, I guess I would ask, why is it an inappropriate place?
Because it's in a neighborhood that the tone of it is to have been single-family without ADUs, to the point that the covenants, which we did not enforce, indicated to the homeowners this was for single-family without ADUs in this area, and I don't think it's appropriate there.
Well, I think the covenants reference multifamily, and I think this is slightly different than what a multifamily is.
But an ADU there could then allow multifamily indirectly.
Well, I don't know when the covenants were drafted, but my guess is they probably didn't contemplate ADU.
I don't normally answer your questions, but I did in that case. That is why I don't think an ADU is appropriate here.
Is there any other remedy versus changing, I mean, could they get a building permit and modify it such that it was not out of conformance?
I mean, you'd have to remove the elements that make it an ADU.
That weren't supposed to be there originally.
Or that they were, and oftentimes, they just get permitted and it gets overlooked. Here, it happened to be an appraiser that found it. But my house has a kitchen in the apartment behind me, and it was permitted. So oftentimes it happens. I don't know if it's a lapse in the permitting or what happened, but the only way to remedy it would be to remove the elements and make it an ADU, which of course would mean we wouldn't need to be standing here.
Is this purview of Board of Adjustment? Board of Adjustment.
For a variance?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Could you be seeking a use variance, which are not allowed in Oklahoma?
And it can't be of your own making, the hardship, so.
Right, so, I mean.
I'm sorry, I tend to agree with Commissioner LaForge on this one. This is not an area where I would be,
But
recommending approval on ADU. I get your problem, and I wonder is it the lender that's at issue here or is having a problem with this? That they veto on it?
You could do it there, you could do there.
If they could suggest some language that would not create a conflict with the R1 that perhaps we could live with, that would be one thing. This is not a place where I would recommend approval of an ADU.
Yeah, it's not a lending problem.
I suppose it meets rear setbacks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any other issues that have been identified. It came up through an appraisal. The appraiser was not willing or able to move forward to finalize it because he didn't deem it to be compatible with its current zoning. When we dug into it, it became clear that you needed this to be able to have the ADU. So there's no way to remedy it. To remedy it is this, or you remove the elements that make it an ADU and you don't need zoning.
Prior to the meeting, I wasn't aware of the conflict with the HOA documents. Is there any way we could do a continuance, David, and try to see if we can figure out a way to resolve this?
Sure. I will say there's no way to resolve the covenant issue because that's just not anything that you as a commission can consider.
Right.
And I'm happy to take the deferral. There's no way around what it is we need to be legal.
Okay. If we can, let's
See about that.
take a deferral to the next meeting.
Sure.
Which would be the
8th.
Till August 8th.
So what do you, just so that I'm clear, what do you envision happening during that time?
I'd like to go back and try to dig into the code aspect of how this happened and what really, because when I've talked to staff, I'm getting kind of conflicting things as to what what determines that this is a detached or an ADU. It's kind of like building saying one thing, planning and getting a little different story. I'd like to go back and get all the parties together and talk through this to see if we can find some way to resolve this without making a planning change or a zoning change that's going to impact the neighborhood. I don't think anybody here necessarily wants that, but that seems to be the only way to resolve that. But I'd like to explore this a little bit further.
What county is this, David?
I'm sorry?
What county is this in?
Cleveland.
Is this Cleveland?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I think that's a good move, Commissioner Newman. If there is no other way to do this and it does come back, I would be in favor of just approving the ADU and letting the homeowners association enforce their rules about renting out to separate people. That's just my view. I know we don't have unanimous
I had
consent on that.
somewhat come to that conclusion, but I was not aware of the homeowners association and their comments in this. So I'd like to at least have a meeting with everyone, sit down, see if there's any other alternative versus changes in zoning. So, with that, I'd like to make a motion to defer to August 8th.
A motion from Commissioner Newman to defer the items to the August 8th agenda. Been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10.
Item 10 is SPUD 1645, application to rezone 1620 Northwest 29th Street from R1 to SPUD 1645.
Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. I'm the owner of the property, and I'm requesting a SPUD to build a second house on this single-family R1 lot. I own the lots next to it, and I've done the same thing with a different SPUD in the past. So this is a continuation of a project I've already begun.
Commissioner Powers, this is Ward 2.
As Mr. Grisham says, this is a continuation of this pattern along the south side of 29th Street. They're, half a block from OCU, which is a great place for some density, and I'm all in favor. I have not gotten any phone calls. Is there anyone who's signed up to appear?
No, I don't have anyone signed up to speak.
So if other commissioners don't have any comments or questions, I'll move approval of item 10, SPUD 1645.
Of a motion from Commissioner Powers to recommend approval of City Council of SPUD 1645. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11.
This is SPUD 1648, application to rezone 512 South Mustang Road from PUD 287.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is a SPUD that would allow for modified commercial zoning along Mustang Road. It's in keeping with many of the other recent developments along Mustang. As you know, Mustang Road is a state highway, so commercial development along there we deem to be appropriate. There are no TEs.
This is Commissioner Meek's ward, and he is absent. Is there anyone that would like to lead our discussion?
I will. Did anyone sign up to speak?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
If that, I have no problems with it, or the uses listed.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Ready for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval for SPUD 1648.
A motion from Commissioner Noble to recommend to City Council approval of SPUD 1648. It's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12.
This is SPUD 1649, application to rezone 1201 and 1132 Northwest 7th Street from R3 and SPUD 951.
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800
Okay. Thank you.
South Sarah Road on behalf of the applicant. This is a SPUD to rezone the southeast and northwest corners of 7th and Klein. There's two tracks. Track 1, which is the southeast corner of 7th and Klein, is to allow for an expansion of the existing Schwab Meat Building. And Track 2, the northwest corner of 7th and Klein, is an existing parking lot, and the intent is to keep that at that current use and make improvements there too so that they can park on that. The expansion of the existing building will remove a good portion of their existing parking on site, and the spot allows for the off-site parking at the northwest corner. There are no TEs. Happy to answer any questions, and we would ask for your approval.
Commissioner Govine, this is your ward.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, reviewed the application. I don't have any issues. I think the setback requirements make sense in the context of the neighborhood and this existing business campus type situation where they own multiple parcels, even though they're not continuous, as they're used for parking. Landscape, I hope you agree, the landscape compromises seems good to me, so I'm in support, but is anyone signed up to speak?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
Questions, comments? In that case, move to recommend approval of SPUD 1649.
A motion from Commissioner Govine to recommend to City Council approval of SPUD 1649. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
I did vote, I thought, and I voted yes, I thought.
All right,
There
now
we
it's
go.
reflected. Thank you. Item 13 has been deferred. Takes us to item 14.
Item 14 is SPUD 1652, application to rezone 3331 Southwest 104th Street from PUD 831 and AE1 Airport Environment Zone to SPUD 1652 and AE1.
Scott Darr with Olson Engineering, 11600 Broadway Extension. We're seeking a SPUD to update the zoning in this area. The current zoning has the west 85 feet of the property approved for the light-duty automotive use, which is what we're seeking to put on this property as a Brakes Plus commercial store. And currently, like I said, the 85 feet on the west side of the lot is an approved use, and the remaining portion on the east side of this lot is not an approved use under the current PUD. So we're seeking to update that zoning.
So just looking to take what you have on the 85, West 85, and take it across the whole site.
Correct.
Commissioner Newman, this is your ward.
I've looked at the application. I'm familiar with the site. I've spoken with the applicant. And do we have anyone signed up on this? Unless anyone else has any comments on it, it's fairly straightforward. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve SPUD 1652 for 3331 Southwest 104th Street.
I have a motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval of City Council of SPUD 1652. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. Item passes. Good luck. Item 15.
This is SPUD 1644, application to rezone 17,001 Northwestern Avenue from R1.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is an SPUD for a limited commercial development along Western Avenue. There are two TEs. TE1 we do not agree with. Those are uses that we believe to be appropriate and uses that we need for this development. However, we can agree that the drive-through use unit, we can place a limitation that it cannot be any closer than 150 feet to any residential property line. And then we would like to add a TE where we remove the greenhouse and hoop house use, and we do agree to TE number 2. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Newman, this is another one.
No,
Ward 3.
8.
No, it's a,
Oh, all right, Ward 8, I'm sorry.
Reviewed the application, talked to the applicant, do agree that those uses, I think, could be permitted as land use, for this land use. And did anyone sign up to speak?
No.
I know there's a really large buffer on the west side. The north side is a church, and a large buffer that way too, so I really didn't see a problem with it. Anyone else?
Looks like we're just ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve SPUD 1644 with TE number 1 being stricken.
Delete, correct.
Deleted. TE number 2 as written, and add TE 3 to remove hoop house and greenhouse uses.
And add
And
a
add-
TE for the 150 feet for
Yeah.
Yep, and a TE for 150 feet for the
drive-through
drive-through
intercom.
box.
All right. Have a motion from Commissioner Noble to approve the item subject to the amended TEs. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
All right, item passes. Item 16.
This is KC 7669, preliminary plat of Callady Cove, located south of East Hefner Road and east of North Post Road, and a variance, along with a variance to the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. With me today is the developer. Before you, we believe to be a fairly straightforward rural residential plat. We conform to zoning code, most importantly, and in the subregs with the exception of one area. That's the length of the cul-de-sac. And I want to touch on that just for a second. The length of the cul-de-sac, if this would have been zoned RA or RA2, would not have required the variance. It's because our zoning is R1 that we're being triggered that portion of the subdivision regulations. However, we're not building urban density lots, which is why that cul-de-sac length is shortened. Further, we also view that as a temporary variance. One of the TEs is to extend and have a stub street, which we agree to the south. So at the point that the property to the south ever seeks development, they would then connect out to wherever their other access point is. So ultimately, there would be connectivity here with the new stub street on the south end side. So I know there were protest letters. I'm happy to address any points that the commission would like. And I believe there are some folks here signed up, and I'm happy to let them speak and then respond accordingly. But outside of the variance, we're in conformance with all of the subdivision regulations and zoning regulations at this time.
Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you. First, to our neighbors, just for clarity, when we're dealing with a preliminary plat, I'm unable to meet with neighbors because we are operating in a quasi-judicial way, so I'm not allowed to do that. Otherwise, I would have appreciated the opportunity to get more involved in this conversation before. I'm certain what we're going to hear about is lot sizes, Mark, when we hear from our neighbors. So can you talk about that? And can you talk about the environmental impact? Obviously, when we're talking about no sewer and no water, and you're going to put them on wells and on aerobic septic systems on 1 acre lots. I mean, that's certainly better than the half-acre lots that we used to see before, but you may recall that we, within the last year, had a planning commission study session about the aerobic systems. We are deeply concerned about the impact of those systems, especially when the lot sizes are too small. So I'm hoping you could address those concerns from the neighbors before we hear them so that they might be able to, give us some color commentary based on what you're thinking.
Absolutely. So the zoning's R1 single family. Minimum lot size, if water and sewer is to be brought out here, would be 6,000 square feet. We're proposing 1 acre. In the absence of water and sewer, our minimum lot size would be 3/4 of an acre. I think previously, in most cases, when you see half acre, it's been pretty widely decided that the aerobic system was not appropriate. Even though that type of lot size is fully in conformance with ODEQ, I think Oklahoma City's Planning Commission has determined that half acre was not. So even knowing that we were permitted 3/4 acre lots, we went above and beyond that to the 1 acre. And if you go back and recall presentations that you were shown, the difference between the 3/4 acre, the half acre lot, and the 1 acre for the spray field and then usable backyard was significant. So we feel not only are we meeting all the ODEQ regulations, we're exceeding them. And we believe providing something that previously has been more acceptable than half acre and 3/4 acre lots on well and septic.
So without the cul-de-sac, the length, would you need this? Well, this is a plat, so I'm thinking about the zoning still. So sorry, we can hear from the neighbors.
All right, I have two signed up. So Mr. Burgoyne, Bill Burgoyne.
Hello, Commissioner Pennington. Hello, rest of you commissioners. My name's Bill Burgoyne. I'm a landowner representing myself. I live at 10337 East Hefner Road. The driveway to my 15 acres, you'll see it right where the entrance comes out. I'm just right there. My 15 acres, my wife and I bought that back in 2018. It's our place to come out and it's our peaceful place. We're retiring there. That's my place. If you go back one, right there, that's my place. There's a low spot over here, which is a river bottom, which has previously been a wetlands, okay? That's my concern, is that I would like to restore that wetland. I've been in touch with the pardon me for a second, I'm nervous, and this means a lot to me. With the Oklahoma Conservation Commission regarding restoring the wetlands in the low spot on my land. The way this plat is drawn, everything would have to drain to the west, down to the low spot where there are two big tin horns that go underneath Hefner. So that water is going to come down. It's going to take a 90, go underneath Hefner, and if you'll hold that picture there, right where the road's coming out, there's a little zig that way and then a zag where you can see a row of trees on my property right there. That's all low spot. There was a 4-acre wetland area on that property prior to my buying it. I want to restore that. I'm concerned about 21 houses being built with septic, aerobic septic systems, with the water well being, taxed, with a very difficult entrance right there. The traffic coming down Hefner, I pray every time my kids pull out of my driveway. I swear to goodness I do. And the line of sight is terrible. But worst of all is the wildlife. Look at the density of the woods on that piece of land right there. There are indigo buntings. If anybody's a bird watcher, they're like, wow, that's a rare bird. We don't have many of those. There's painted buntings. There's bald eagles in the area. There are red-tailed hawks, Mississippi kites. I could go on down, deer by the thousands. Now, if you looked at the map here, if you go 3 miles back to the east on Hefner, you will not see any population density of this type until you reach old, what is it, Mr. Khalidi? Old Mill, which Mr. Khalidi's other development on Hefner, where he took basically some land and put 43 houses of this type on 3/4 acre lots. I spoke to some of the neighbors out there. They told me that they're having flooding based upon there are no storm sewers. The water just comes on down the hill. Nobody's addressed it with them. All these concerns are not only my concerns. I think I can speak for everybody who lives on that map right there. And most of them did sign the petition. We're not for this. We're for expansion of Oklahoma City. But my goodness, when my wife and I bought that land, we did not think that in Oklahoma City would be encroaching upon our little neck of the woods so quickly. And I don't see what the hurry is. I know Mr. Khalidi, and I will speak his name because he's here, does like to take advantage of sheriff sales and buy land very dirt cheap, which he did in this case. The land in this area is selling for $30,000 an acre, $25,000 to $30,000 an acre. He paid half that, less than half that. And good for him, good on him, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I'll close with this, Mr. Khalidi, his motto is friends for life. Well, I can't be your friend for life if you do this to my little neck of the woods. And other than that, please consider all these considerations. We're concerned about the environment, and we will have some people from the state and the federal out on my property looking at some options for my wetlands restoration shortly. Lastly, I do have a picture. Would I be able to approach you guys with a picture and show you some of the flooding that we've had in that very area in the past? May I?
You can share it around.
This is Hefner Road. I'll tell you, it's right. Do you see the pond just to the west? Yeah, right there. There's a creek that comes down, feeds that pond, and then feeds my pond, and onto my land, which it goes out the back into the river bottom. Okay, so that's my wetlands. Not mine, the wetlands. But anyway, this is the flooding that we get in that area. Hefner's not travelable for maybe 2 days.
Tap that screen.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, see, it's not passable. I'm gonna show you one more picture on the way back. It's still showing?
Yeah.
All right. I'll show you one more picture on the way back here of my pasture.
You have about 10 seconds for your time's
That's
up.
my pasture, full of 8 feet of water. My kids were swimming out there. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Burgoyne. Next speaker is Everest, I apologize, Bergerer?
Berggren. Good afternoon, and thank you, Commissioners. My name is Everest Berggren. I'm an attorney here in Oklahoma City representing one of the neighbors, 1904 Pebble Creek Boulevard. I'm by no means an expert in this field, but I want to make the best use of the 5 minutes I have to highlight some of the issues that I've seen. In addition to the usual light and noise that comes with an expansion, we're also concerned, again, about the septic systems. The proposed plat has divided the property into lots that are barely large enough to maintain these systems. That minimum lot is determined by things like soil tests and minimum bedroom size. I trust the developer will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that those things have been done to the extent that we need them to. So what? So the homeowners will just have to be cautious of what they put down the drain. Well, here's the issue. A lot of these properties are going to be rentals, just like the other property owned by this developer 2 miles up the road. Renters are far less careful with how they're treating the home, namely their sewage system. So what? The Khalidis will just work with the renters to fix the plumbing issues before they become catastrophic. Here's the issue. Khalidi LLC has a D- rating and is not accredited by the Better Business Bureau. They've been in business for 26 years, more than enough time to gain a positive reputation and a positive rating. A BBB complaint lodged in March 22 alleges that a renter waited months and months to address a plumbing issue after bringing it to the landlord's attention.
I want to just caution you on this. This is starting to get outside the purview of our authority. So we're as you discuss the applicant, just be cautious.
Thank you, Commissioner. This complaint alleged bathroom light, pest issues, water outages, including even medical issues that were caused by unaddressed mold. These same sorts of complaints were mirrored by 2 Google reviews. So what? The septic systems could rupture and wastewater spills into the ground, so it might smell bad. Well, here's the issue. It's critically important in this area in particular that the wells and the waterways are not contaminated. They are the water sources for many of these homes, in addition to being the water sources for a lot of the livestock. And it's not kind of just butchering livestock. A lot of these homes house show horses, animals that are valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, a water body is a reservoir or a stream listed in either the most current Lakes of Oklahoma or Water Quality Integrated Report is written by the Department of Environmental Quality. Now, there is a stream about within 1,320 feet of the west border of the proposed plat. It is not listed in the Lakes of Oklahoma, but it probably should be. That waterway is a source for a lot of the riparian habitat out there, as well as being a source for a lot of the livestock to drink from. Now, to ensure the livestock is not harmed, the developers need to install these expensive aerobic treatment units. And again, I trust I'll be corrected if I'm incorrect, but that hasn't been done either. So what? The groundwater gets contaminated, livestock and home water sources are rendered unusable, and the people affected should be able to recover in court. Here's the issue with that. Even recently, on June 10th, the Oklahoma Department of Securities filed an application for a restraining order, order freezing assets, and order for accounting without notice in CJ 2024 against Rabid Khalidi. The department is alleging that Rabid took $1.4 million from investors and used it to pay off the debts of a different LLC.
That's not applicable to this.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm asking this Commissioner, this Council, to require larger lots to reduce traffic and noise, to ensure that the aerobic systems are being installed correctly and that the stream is not polluted, to ask for 6-foot fences to ensure that renters on the proposed plat are not interacting with any of the livestock on neighboring lands. And at the very, very least, I think an indefinite continuance is merited, not only to make sure that the developer has crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's, but also for the neighbors to do their homework, to determine if this should be a protected waterway, to determine what riparian conservation strategies might be used here. The best way to get rid of a poison tree is to never have planted the seed, and I think this council has the opportunity to address a lot of these preemptively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you will allow me to ask Mr. Bergen a couple questions, if he's okay with that. I don't mind, as Mr. Box can attest, I don't mind picking on the lawyers. But a few questions. So one, for clarity, we as this commission can't determine whether or not the property gets rented or whether it's owner occupied. So that is not within our purview. So no matter how our neighbors are feeling about that, that is not within our authority.
Correct.
But with regard to screening, are you suggesting that we just need to make sure that there's a 6-foot standard fence between these properties and the adjacent properties, and that addresses the concern with regard to the livestock?
I'll be extra clear on what I'm asking in this continuance.
Okay.
First, yes, that 6-foot fences be installed. Second, that the exact parameters for the septic systems are followed. That means the soil test, the number of bedrooms. And third, that the aerobic containment unit, I think is the name of the appliance, the aerobic treatment unit, I'm sorry, is accounted for and installed.
But we don't do the enforcement of the aerobic systems.
Yeah, that's a
DEQ.
permit for DEQ, so we don't have any say in that.
But I hear your point about whether it's adequate, and that was what I was asking Mr. Zitzow earlier, was is the lot size sufficient, given that there is a spray field from the aerobic systems? But we don't have anything to do with how they're permitted.
Correct, and the neighbors aren't sure either. I understand that that's not this council's purview, but what is this council's purview is continuing this matter to a later date so that that can actually be determined by the powers that be.
Okay.
And again, if I'm incorrect or overstepping my bounds, I'm sure the developer will correct me.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, but thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zitzow, do you want to respond to any of those?
First, I'll try not to be offended that as a renter, I can't afford to maintain where I live or take care of the place that I live. But on the other items that he discussed, we're exceeding the minimum lot sizes for DEQ. We will, of course, have inspections that DEQ does. All of those studies, some of the studies that he's mentioning actually come with the final plat. But everything when it comes to the well and septic will meet state and federal regulations for the construction of them. There was a lot of other things mentioned. I can't address flooding of Old Mill. We didn't work on that project. I'm not familiar with it. Access to the site was brought up. We have a 50-foot wide frontage there. That meets the minimum frontage requirement. We've done with it what we can, so that's the only spot. One of the TEs is that we have to do a site triangle or a site study at the time of final plat. We agree to that. If there is site distance issues, we'll do what we've done in other neighborhoods, which there are items you can install, solar, flashing lights, let people know that there's a T intersection coming up. We've worked through that with traffic before. We'll address that at the final plat stage. In terms of the fencing, personally, I think it's a worse idea to require 6-foot stockade fences. That causes a significant removal of trees. And I believe the majority of folks that sign a petition live in what I believe is the subdivision to our east. Their fence is actually 20 to 30 feet off the property line. So their fences, they have a 20-foot buffer on their own property where the fence exists. So we can't access their property without further trespassing onto their property. But there's a significant amount of vegetation that there's no intention to disturb when constructing these homes. So building a 6-foot stockade fence would likely cause the removal of a significant swath of those trees, which I think would be counter to what would be beneficial to the existing homeowners. But with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions. We're opposed to a continuance because we're a preliminary plat that meets the zoning, and I think that's a lot of the concerns. We're happy to continue conversations when we get to the final plat stage. But at this point, we would ask for your approval.
My comments. First, I want to speak to the neighbors and appreciate you all coming down a long way, and Mr. Bergen's advocacy. The first thing, to be clear, if this were a case that was a zoning case where we were deciding whether or not this was a piece of property, a parcel that was going to be residential, and we could decide the scale at which they could were allowed to develop, this would be a separate question for me. I'd probably agree that they needed a PUD and we'd ask for larger lot sizes. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's already zoned for R1 residential, so they already have a right to build. If there was water and sewer, they'd have a right to build 6,000 square foot lots on this property already without the Planning Commission taking any action whatsoever. I share the concern, and so I guess I want to make sure that I'm clear. They have a right to build at this density. They have a right to build at this size. That is unfortunate. I don't like it. It does not meet the character of this area. We could vote no on it, but we'd be denying them what their actual rights are, and we would not, as a commission, be operating within our actual statutory authority because it's consistent with the zoning. That doesn't make it easy to take. And I certainly understand. I certainly understand the concern.
Sir, please refrain from commenting from the...
I certainly understand the concern. I agree that the lot sizes are not consistent with the character of the area, and I understand that. I share that concern. Unfortunately, again, on the Department of Environmental Quality and their enforcement of their rules with regard to aerobic systems, we were deeply concerned about this, which is exactly why we had a study session so that we could determine that even though there is not a city ordinance in place, this commission has said we just don't want to approve anything that's less than an acre for using the aerobic septic system. So it's one of those cases where it's just not fun to be on this commission. I think that this is a preliminary plat, so they have to come back to us again with a final plat. I think between now and that time, I would like to see the applicant meet with the neighbors to discuss a few things. One, the impact of the aerobic systems. Two, the fencing. I've heard a compelling case for why we shouldn't allow the fencing on their property. I do think we want to make sure that we're preserving the trees and natural beauty of the area. Let's try to at least have some respect for the character of the area that we can. And so I'd like to see that conversation take place between now and the final plat stage. Again, because we're dealing with a plat, I'm not allowed to be involved in those conversations, but I would really strongly encourage those conversations to take place. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move the variance unless there's other comments from commissioners.
I had a question for Mr. Zitzel. On the cul-de-sac, this is a minor point, but I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is it's drawn that way now, but you would show the connection for the final plat coming in, like, because that would change the lot size at that end. You'd have to create an
Correct.
easement.
After a conversation with Jared, staff report came out. He noted that subdivisions required the connection to the south. We agree to stub it down.
Okay.
So
But
what you're
you'd still
seeing would
have
be
to build the
slightly-
cul-de-sac temporarily, so that lot size would be.
Still construct the cul-de-sac because we'll need fire turnaround. But what would happen is you'd see the right-of-way touch the southern boundary.
Yeah, okay.
So that the southern property owner could connect to it at a future date.
I just wanted to check on that. That makes good sense. On the lot size, because I heard you said a number of things there that was going by me fairly quickly. Is your minimum lot size for this development proposed 3/4 acre or 1 acre?
Well, if you flip back to the plat.
Because I heard 3/4.
The minimum lot size per DEQ is 3/4 acre. Our plat showing roughly 1 acre. I don't know if you could zoom in. They're all just over 43,000 square feet.
Okay.
So.
Personally, I would like to see an acre and a half would make me feel better, but.
I think I'd like to see it to 0.75 dwelling units per acre. That, to me.
So if this was a zoning case and we were doing a PUD, we'd happily engage on lot
I know.
size. But
You don't have
we
to.
have 6,000 square foot minimum lot size of water and sewers here. Without, it's 3/4 of an acre and we're at an acre. So we've already exceeded the minimum lot size per DEQ standards.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's why I was kind of, I'm 1 acre minimum is the minimum that we're going on these things, I think, and we need to have a little more of a deeper conversation about these rules. I appreciate this is a unique case, so I would be okay with the 1 acre as proposed. Just wish it was more.
Anything else?
You have to come up.
You have to come to the podium to give your name and address, ma'am. No? Okay. No, that's,
I have to just say, it's a little puzzling and troubling to look at the zoning map in this area and see how much of this property is zoned R1.
The reason why this
It
is all
is-
zoned R1 is it was annexed in the 60s and it was all zoned at R1.
So that's really, problematic because
Yes.
clearly the character of the area is,
Is not that.
Yeah, not that. So, I have to agree with you. This is not a good day to be a planning commissioner. This is a tough one. And, with what we know about these aerobic systems and how little they are monitored and how easily they are,
Go out of compliance.
how easy it is to cause them to not work properly. This is a tough one.
for those of you that are raising your hands to speak, there was an opportunity to sign up for this item. That is passed. There is an opportunity at the end of the meeting to speak publicly. You can sign up for that if you'd still like to have the commission hear your comments. So, are we ready for a motion?
I'm going to move the variance to table 5.1 and section 5.3.2.a of the subdivision regulations.
I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to approve the variance.
Oh, sorry, that's me, sorry.
Do we have a second?
Hold on one second.
If we don't have a second, the motion fails. All right. It's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes.
Gotta come back.
Are we waiting? All right. The variance passes. Motion for the item?
Move approval of C 7669.
subject to technical evaluation.
Subject to the technical evaluations.
Motion from Commissioner Pennington to approve C-7669, subject to technical evaluations.
Oh, sorry. I'm not used to being the one to have to press the button. Sorry. I'm out of practice.
Again, need a second. Second by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. That item fails.
All over the place. I don't know what else we can do other than vote again.
I don't know if it's going to change. I don't think it's going to change anything. We can vote to deny.
It's preliminary.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would say.
Why don't we just continue?
Well,
Can you
I guess I would
continue?
ask, it's 7-1 to support the variance for the plat. And I guess my point is, with the variance, we are now in conformance with all the subdivision regulations and the zoning code. I'm not sure where that puts us.
I think that we are still concerned about lot size. I think we'd still like to see more effort be put into addressing the lot size concerns and the screening. Maybe we could just take 2 weeks and come back after you've had the chance to visit with the neighbors about that.
But I'm happy to have a meeting with the neighbors. I'll note that we exceed the lot size and there's no intent on changing it. So we're going to be right back where we are with the same plat in 2 weeks.
What do we want to do?
There's your pen.
Defer? All right. 2 weeks?
Yep. I move to continue this item to the next meeting of the Planning Commission.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to defer to the August 8th meeting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Again, we're happy to defer if there's something fruitful that can come out of it, but the lot size is going to come back at the same size. So
And
I
we're
think the
hopeful that that's
commission-
not the case. And we're suggesting you take 2 weeks to consider that. If you come back with the same thing, you come back with the same thing. If you don't, you don't.
Wow. It's ours.
We're not willing to change the lot size, so we'd ask that you vote on the plat as it stands today.
all right.
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion from Commissioner LaForge to deny the application.
Minus about a yes vote is a
Oh,
motion.
yeah. so-
Denial. I get it.
They're not-
All right, I think the system's ready for a motion. So we have a motion to deny. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please remember that a motion, a yes vote, is a vote to deny. Please cast your votes. All
Thank
right.
you.
Application is denied. Takes us to item 17.
This is PUD 2023, application to rezone 308 Northwest 164th Street from PUD 823.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The PUD before you will allow two things. One, it will allow the future expansion of a school, including the elevated grades. That use unit is not allowed in the current PUD, as well as allowing for architectural metal panels, which would include the temporary use of a temporary building that's on site now to bridge the gap until such time that the permanent structure is built. There are no TEs. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Are you saying that the use of the architectural metals is the placement of T-buildings on
Well,
the
it's two
site?
things. It's the ability to use architectural metal in future buildings, but also would allow for the temporary use to remain.
Okay.
And then again, the use units necessary for, the future expansion of the school with the higher grade levels.
Is there a timeline on the temporary use?
Not right now. I mean, obviously, it's a function of funding. They'd love it to be, tomorrow, but
So, but again, the intention is that they are not going to remain, that those metal buildings don't remain, right?
correct, yeah. And if you look at the site plan, you'll see notated on there the future site, and it's on the, well, when you look at the aerial, it's that notch of grass west of the parking lot, that square.
Anything else from commissioners? I do have someone signed up to speak.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Dan Halber. All right.
My name is Dan Helber, 16317 Delmar Drive. I'm an adjacent homeowner. I received a note from y'all that said that there was an applicant to change the PUD from 823 to 2023. And I did a little looking around, and the PUD, the existing PUD, calls for all stone, masonry, brick structures. And so what I saw was temporary classrooms and materials for metal buildings coming in, and I was concerned about that. I think that if this 2023 passes, then all of the construction that's been going on is going to fit within that. And I think that that's probably in the character of the lot. But it was my concern that if it's a planning commission, that we would do it's not a reaction commission. It's that we would get the permits and get this PUD in place before any construction took place. And so that surprised me. I am concerned with I'm delighted with the wide space between my home and the parking lot now. I'm one of the homeowners on the eastern side, and there's talk in the PUD, the new one, or in the old one, about a 6-foot stockade fence, which I think has never been built. It was from 2021 was when the Oklahoma City approved that, and in my view, it's best that stockade fence was never built, because from my backyard, I look out across their parking lot, at their buildings and to the buildings across, and I'm happy without the 6-foot fence. If there's in the new PUD, they're asking about an 8-foot, or they're talking about an 8-foot wall to be constructed along the eastern side to screen things. What they do on their property is their business, but if it were me, I would just assume that the visual screening that takes place there, they're talking about putting in some more trees along that eastern boundary of the property, that if that were there, that would be better than a wall.
So I guess just for clarity, it sounds like the objection is more about the quality of the fencing?
I heard the preference is for no fence or no wall along the eastern boundary.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that screening regulation and that language is
Standard.
Is in every
standard in all PUDs. Yeah, it's 6 or an 8-foot.
That a landscape buffer may be utilized in lieu of.
In lieu of that.
So,
Yeah. So it does give that option. Okay.
So I will note that, that's one adjacent property owner's opinion of what looks to be like 15 lots over there, so.
And the architectural metal, the allowance of it, Bobby, maybe you talk on to that. It's not your typical just a metal building.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I don't have an issue with the future building using architectural metals in this location. It's a school connected to a church. It's deep in the property. It's the differentiation of the temporary situation of portables, if I'll refer to them as. I don't know how portable they are, but how do we know that that's not a permanent situation, that we're just approving portables to sit there forever, and that there is indeed a future building to be built? Like, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, and I have no issue with the case, but what if they stay there forever?
Well, I mean, they wouldn't have spent the money to come forward with an application if it wasn't for the purpose of being able to have that school
build the
long-term.
project.
They could have easily just thrown up a little bit of, brick facade around the metal building and called it good. We believe that forcing us to go put brick up on the temporary building would just create a bunch of waste, because then we'll just have to scrap it all when the new building opens. So it's a stopgap, plus, again, we need the use unit for the elevated grades. We just think it's a tremendous amount of waste to go brick a temporary building.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just kind of wanted to hear a
Sure.
little more of, and I think the fact that they have plans that are being drawn and everything is a strong indication that it is moving forward with the.
I think it's kind of a user enforcement mechanism. If you've ever gone to school in T buildings, I have, and my children have too. It's like people will only put up with that for so long. This is a private school. People are not going to be sending their kids to go to school there, to go, to class and.
Have to walk outside.
When they've raised the money for a new building, they'll build it, I'm pretty sure.
I'm satisfied with that.
I wouldn't mind a date. Yeah, would be nice, but then, construction.
All right, anything else?
I don't think so. I think I'm ready at this point. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to City Council approval of PUD 2023.
We have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend approval of PUD 2023 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. That item passes.
Thank you.
Item 18.
This is PUD 2022, application to rezone 15602 North MacArthur Boulevard from R1.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This application is to increase the lot coverage from 50 to 58%. It's an area that has significant amount of single-family residential development, and all we're really doing here is just slightly increasing that lot coverage. There are no technical evaluations. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Noble, this is Ward 8.
Reviewed the application, talked to the applicant, made sure there wasn't any changes to the plat or lot sizes, and is everyone signed up to speak?
I don't have anyone signed up.
Anyone else have anything to say on it? No, and I'm in favor of increasing the lot coverage just a little bit, just bigger houses on smaller lots.
All right, just need a motion.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve PUD 2022.
A motion from Commissioner Noble to recommend approval of City Council of PUD 2022. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
And that item passes. Item 19.
Item 19 is CPA 2024-5, consideration of comprehensive plan amendment, changing the land use topology area designation from rural medium to urban low on approximately 36-acre tract located at southwest 149th Street and west of South Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mariana Mujica Ortiz, Planning Department. This is CPA 2024-05. It's a request to amend the comprehensive plan, changing the rural medium land use to urban low. The associated application is PUD 2021. It's located, like it was mentioned before, north of southwest 149th and west of South Pennsylvania. In terms of land use, right now the site is undeveloped. It's surrounded by some rural residential and some undeveloped land. In terms of the zoning, is AA, is surrounded by AA with a little bit of rural to the west. In terms of the land use typology, is designated as rural medium, sorry, and is surrounded by some rural medium. To the north is some urban low. The city water is ready available on site. The applicant is proposing to extend the city sewer to the site. In terms of emergency services and fire services, the site is within urban response time for fire emergency services. In terms of ESAs, or environmental sensitive areas, there's a little bit of riparian area to the northwest of the site. And there's a little bit of flood zone to the northwest of the site. The applicant is proposing to maintain the area's open space. The findings and recommendations, city water is really available on site. The applicant is proposing to extend sewer services. The site is located within urban response time for fire emergency services, and the applicant is proposing to keep the riparian area and flood zone as open spaces. Based on the findings above, the staff recommends approval of the request to changing the rural medium intensity-based LUDA to urban low intensity-based LUDA designation. If you have any questions.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Meeks' ward. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Say mine.
Your ward?
Yes, it was.
Ward 5.
It's a typo.
Okay.
It's Ward 5. So I am very familiar with this piece of property. It's very close to where I live. Frequently drive by it. I think that what they've proposed, I agree with the staff, I think is a good fit. The utilities are there, the public services are there, the access is there, and I don't have any issues with making this overlay change. But I'd like to solicit any input from any of the other commissioners, or if we have someone, do we have anyone signed up on this?
Don't have anyone signed up. I'll just say, I mean, looking at, the criteria, it seems to meet all the criteria, so it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. No, it does. Unless there's any other objections, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve CPA 2020, let's see, where am I at? Yeah, CPA 2024-05.
I have a motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval of CPA 2024-05. It's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes. And that amendment passes. Item 20.
This is PUD 2021, application to rezone 2237 Southwest 149th Street from AA to PUD 2021.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, Mark Zitzow, also here with me. This is the companion item to what you just heard. So what you have before you is a PUD for a single-family development. As staff indicated, as the reason for their supporting of the comp plan, the necessary service levels are there for urban level development, and that's what we have before you in this PUD. There is only one TE that we do not agree to, and then there are a couple of additional TEs that, in visiting with Commissioner Newman, we would like to add. So the first TE that we'd like to add, and I'll just read it into the record, site-proof screening shall be provided along Southwest 149th Street. The fencing shall be maintained by the homeowners association to ensure consistency in color, material quality, and to provide for timely repair. The fencing shall be cedar on steel posts, masonry, or architectural precast concrete panels. The second additional TE, one entry into the neighborhood shall be a boulevard-style entry with a landscape median. Access to the PUD tract shall be per the subdivision regulations, and one entry into the neighborhood, I don't know why that's redundant. I think that's just what we said. And then Mr. Zitzow did hand a copy of what I just read to staff. So happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, We do not agree to TE1, and we propose to add the 2 TEs I just read into the record.
Do we want to, any discussion on TE1? We want to hear from staff?
We need to find a way to deal with this moving forward, because I know the developers don't like it, and we don't have a better solution on how to measure setbacks from floodways, but let's hear from staff.
Okay. Mr. Lodge, you've had a quiet day so far?
Barry Lodge, Public Works. So the requirement for this setback is strictly a comprehensive plan requirement. From an engineering standpoint, we don't have any objection to building closer to that. From the floodway and the floodplain standpoint. The only thing that could possibly be impacted by constructing within that distance would be if the structures were encroaching on our urbanized calculated floodplain. But our policy has been that we don't enforce construction within that urbanized floodplain, but we do enforce elevations for the structures based on that analysis. So from the engineering standpoint, I don't have anything ordinance-wise or policy-wise where I could point and say, we would not allow that. So, I mean, it's strictly a comprehensive plan requirement.
And I understand, Commissioner Govine, that the point of we got to figure it out. The reality is it is already figured out. We have ordinances in place that deal with when you can and when you can't develop. This is just a provision that was plucked out of the comprehensive plan. We will have to follow state, federal, and local laws as it relates to floodways and floodplains.
Understood, yeah, and those are minimum technical requirements that you can satisfy as developers by regrading sites and bulldozing lots of riparian areas. The comprehensive plan recommendation is about community benefits and protecting natural areas that serve other purposes than just the pure, how do we move water? So I'm trying to figure out how do we put some more teeth into a comprehensive plan recommendation and find a reasonable compromise where you can still develop, but if 100 feet's not good enough, is 50 feet okay? Where is how do we find a way to help achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan in a better way, even though I know you can do it?
I think part of the challenge to me, I'm not going to speak for David, but part of the challenge to me is, but what about the ability, engineering should reign to me, like the ability to use the science to decide how you can best mitigate that. I always get worried about us being concerned that the goal is to make sure that the houses don't get flooded. The goal is to make sure that there's still the flow of water. How do we ensure that adequate review occurs and that there are going to continue to be progress in our ability to engineer around these challenges? And so how do we develop an ordinance that's responsive to that?
And the engineering does take care of the elevation and the flooding. I think it's the additional stuff that they were talking about in the comp plan with clean water, the filtration, the other aspects of the riparian areas.
Green space,
Green space, yeah.
Wildlife habitat.
Yeah.
Migration corridors.
Which is really tough on us to mitigate.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it. I don't want to be unfair to anyone, but it's something that bothers me that it's not that different from talking about lot size on the past case, which is very difficult. Sometimes you end up reverting to a gut instinct on these things, and that doesn't feel right either, because we need to have clear and consistent approaches.
It is a subject on which it is very hard to find, I won't say one size fits all because that's not it. It's a flexible enough, yet enforceable, yet providing a fair amount of notice to developers about what to expect that they'll have to comply with. It's very complicated. It's difficult. But I do agree that it is a significant and an important part of the comp plan. It was something that people talked about a lot when we went to those meetings with homeowners. And so, you know, I think just in terms of our own issues with sustainability and the need to protect all, you know, water and habitat and all those things, but at the same time do it in a way that is reasonable with respect to ongoing development, you know. We're going to have to dig in and figure it out.
We are, and developers don't like it because on paper, it hurts the initial bottom line and getting things moving to even build homes. But in the long run, the community benefits, and those homes have higher value for, you know, for decades as a result of preserving more green space around them. So somehow we want to involve you guys in the conversation and figure this out in a
So it's like, you know, it's an issue of predictability, right? So when developers look at a piece of property, they hire professionals, like engineers, to go and say, based upon this type of zoning, subregs, and all of the, you know, the codified rules, here is what you could expect. And then they decide, yes, pass, or yes, buy. Provisions in a comprehensive plan are just not something that developers are looking at as a possibility of a limitation on their yield. So short of ordinances or something codified, it's really, it lacks predictability from a developer standpoint, which is a problem.
It is, but if we followed every recommendation in the comprehensive plan every time, then developers would start using that as their guide.
Well, that's a double-edged sword, because of course in the urban low intensity, it says up to 34 units an acre. So if we're gonna say, yeah, we're gonna protect these green spaces, that's great. We're gonna take away developable area. That means we're going vertical, and that means we're increasing the density because the comprehensive plan says up to 34 units an acre in urban low.
I like that.
I think
Well, I do too.
I think the challenge is on us to find a way to codify what we expect in a way that still provides a predictability to developers. And sometimes you can do that through just policy. You're right. If we did this consistently, that would become the expectation. But I think, you know, from where we are now, it's important that we find a way to get it in writing and get it, you know, codify it. Yeah, I believe that strongly. It's difficult to do. Hard facts make bad law, but, you know, we're just going to have to dig in and figure it out.
I think the challenge is you almost have to consider these on an individual basis, but at the same point in time, they have to have, you know, something consistent that they can take into consideration, because they have to have so much upfront cost before things even get to us. So.
All right. Anything else? Ready for a motion?
Did we have anyone to?
We did not have anyone signed up to speak.
Okay. I agree with the TEs as David had read them. We had significant discussion on this, and I think it turned out well. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to recommend approval to council of PUD 2021. And the TEs is read into the record by Mr.
Deletion
Vaughn.
of one and then.
Deleting one?
Of, yes, one.
All right. A motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval of City Council of PUD 2021, deleting TE1 and subject to the new TEs read into the record. Do I have a second? We are waiting.
Suspenseful.
Do we need to voice vote? All right, there we go. Sync. All right, there it goes. There it registers. Seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
That item passes. That brings us to the end of the individual items to be heard. '22 is deferred. So it takes us to item 5, additional items. Additional 6, communications and report, planning commission committees.
Mr. Chairman, I can report on behalf of the ADU. We became a task force, I guess.
Oh,
instead of
that
a committee.
sounds cool.
That's a
Yeah, I
committee.
guess we self-imposed, we became a task force because it's stronger that way. We have had a series of meetings. You will recall, Mr. Chairman, that it's me, Commissioner Powers, Commissioner Noble, Commissioner Govine, who are working on the ADU ordinance. We decided to, before we began the effort of really digging into the language, that we would visit with concerned stakeholders. So we've had meetings with the HP and HL neighborhood associations. We've had meetings with the Realtor Association, which included a pretty wide swath of people who were also living in neighborhoods that are impacted by this. Then most recently, we met with the quote-unquote, which I don't love, but I'm still going to use the phrase, suburban neighborhood associations of Central OKC. I don't know how you can say truly.
Suburban
style. Okay, we'll go with suburban style. Still don't love it. Still don't love it. We met with them. I think so far there have been really good conversations around the impact of the ordinance. I think that I think our next step is to develop a list of questions that we have for the experts that are our staff regarding infrastructure readiness, traffic, the likelihood of the volume we anticipate of ADUs based on what they've seen in other municipalities, a number of those kinds of questions that I think we're going to just draft up and send to staff, and then have a meeting where we really dig into the language and see what we're thinking about changes. And then sort of have that opportunity for those same stakeholders to share their concerns with whatever that draft may be. So that's sort of the process that we have going. I can tell you that the home sharing ordinance is crucial. I don't know how we can bring the ADU ordinance back without addressing home sharing. And I don't know when the next vote is going to be around, or the consideration of the of the home sharing ordinance. I don't know when that's. Okay.
Moratorium's in place. Sarah, do you remember?
Until the ordinance gets passed.
Yeah. I forget when the ordinance is coming.
When's it coming back to Planning Commission? Because we set it for hearing, didn't we? No?
Do you know, Sarah?
I'm sorry, the home sharing
Home
ordinance?
sharing, yeah, when it's coming.
As of today, we were planning to bring it to you for introduction at your next meeting, so it would be set for public hearing 2 meetings after that. So.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just, if we're having a conversation of it, I felt good about where we were at the last meeting on what's coming in the home sharing when it does get introduced, and if it does eventually pass, then that I felt like that was a good move to address this, that if you have an ADU and you want to home share it, you're going to get kicked and it's going to give a notice. Neighbors are going to get noticed because you're going to have to get a special exception through Board of Adjustment. That's what I understood at our meeting, anyway, we don't have to get into the weeds on this meeting.
Yeah, some of that, yeah.
It's, okay, we'll come back to that at another task force meeting.
Bottom line, we have to be explicit that we address ADUs in the ordinance with the home sharing. And so that'll be a serious part of our consideration because that's a major part of the concern. The other thing is, I think some of our neighbors, especially the ones in the suburban styled neighborhoods, I think the lot coverage thing is not clear enough for them. I think that a lot of their neighborhoods wouldn't even be eligible for ADUs based on the lot coverage requirements as they are. And I think that we've got to find some way of making it clear to them who would actually be impacted and who would not be. And I don't think that's an easy task, but I think it's worthwhile when it comes to how many objections there will be. So this is a way too long committee report, so I'll stop.
Thank you. Any other committees? I don't believe so. Planning Commission members? No. No? Commissioner Govine?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Pennington?
Can't help myself. I never enjoy times when we cannot come together and get a resolution that is respectful of all sides. I know the people who serve on this commission well enough to know that all of us know our obligation, our legal obligation to protect the city, to keep the city from being sued, and we never want to put them in that position. But I also know, and I hope that our developer friends are listening, I also know how much we value treating each other with the kind of respect and dignity that we're worthy of. The Oklahoma standard still matters in how we treat each other. I was hopeful that at least a little bit more conversation with people and let us as a commission get a little bit warmed up to what our limitations actually are would have led to a different outcome with regard to that preliminary plat. And so that's still my position. I always hate it when we're in this weird place where we can't like meaningfully talk outside of the horseshoe and really dig in with neighbors to figure out a compromise that may have been mutually agreeable. So I hate it when we're in that position, and so I have to say it like I always do at the end of these kinds of meetings. So
I think we tried. He refused to do anything with the lot size, so, that's kind of where we were, and that put the brakes on it.
we were obviously heard. I think that we're in a bad position on that one because in 1960, whenever it was annexed back in, R1 didn't mean what R1 means today.
No, they probably intended to get sewer and water over there at one time, but that never happened, so.
Just as a general comment, I think it is important whenever we encourage and applicants agree to meetings with neighbors that all parties enter into that with good faith. And I'm not saying that it's not here. I'm just saying, tempers flare a little bit and there's frustration and all that kind of stuff. But when people actually get together in a room and start talking, I'm a big believer that good things can happen. So let's keep our fingers crossed. It is so difficult not to be able to be part of that conversation and feel like we're helping it along,
it's hard. Can we get them to change the law? Can we work on that?
Commissioner Noble?
Nothing else.
Commissioner Forge? No. Not to dwell on the ADU thing, but I just had one comment as it was related to our case today. Just as the task force talks through this and everyone, just keep in mind that I see it a little bit differently, and I think everyone should have the right to be able to do an ADU for a aging parent or possibly a sibling with special needs that could use independent living very close by. I think a lot of the time when we discuss this, we automatically go to home sharing and renters and all that. So when we talk about where it's appropriate to do one, and those need to be, just keep in mind that a lot of people, might be looking to do that not for personal profit, but to be able to accommodate a family situation.
We do talk quite a bit about that. The issue, and this may go back to our conversation with specialists or experts when it gets down to it, is whether there's any way that we can make that distinction in an ordinance. And, that's almost universally people think that, oh, well, yeah, if it was something like that, that'd be fine, But our ability to make that distinction and have it be enforceable is a big concern, so.
And that's the big question in the ordinance, right? To be able to write an ordinance that covers enough that it makes sense, because we talk about this all the time on the task force, is that the other remedy is an SPUD, and so they came with an SPUD today. I say a lot of times, if the neighborhood was planned for it, it makes sense to me that the ordinance would work. When a neighborhood is not planned for it, then the SPUD process would hopefully work.
Unless you got two kitchens.
Well, and but again, that's what it is.
Difficult than distinguishing between who has a relative or a child or an older versus
Right, because
I mean,
the
that's hard.
property's not gonna stay with the same people and yet the AD's there. Right. And maybe it's not in our purview and we let the CCNR speak for themselves and the landowners and neighbors.
I'm not convinced that it was actually two kitchens either, you know, dealing with David and attorney, so, you know, it is gonna be what it has to be. What he thinks will
Well, a
get
simple
passed.
add-on, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, right. That's what I thought. but,
Planning
you know,
Department?
Yes, a couple things. Just, I wanted to mention on that last case, we actually may not have been as far from a good compromise as we may have thought, because what the staff report was asking was to just prevent structures and impervious surface from being within that 100 feet. It wasn't saying lot lines or anything like that. So in just thinking about it some more, you know, in a future case like that, you know, we could probably, I think there's room there for more compromise. In the plan, it does say within 100 feet, you should really have natural environment. So there was already compromise in the staff report in that TE by saying, well, we're not going to require that they keep the natural environment per se. I mean, they could put Bermuda grass back there, but the TE was really just about keeping structures and impervious surface out of there. So really that's talking about people's backyards. So they weren't that far from it. It's hard to say without looking at, you know, where they're going to put the buildings and so on. But, you know, we can look at, you know, well, maybe we could allow them to have a shallower setback in those types of situations so they can have more space in their rear yards and so on. But all that to say, we are and will be looking at that as, you know, as part of the code update. But even so we'll come back with some code that's more specific than what we have now. As was said, you know, the engineering really looks at drainage. Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of things that are not engineered, they're not in the code, such as all the habitat concerns and the water quality that happens through just maintaining the natural environment, the things that the comp plan talks about. In addition, you know, there's erosion concerns, you know, in the plantings that the engineering doesn't get into. And when you alter the grade too much or you mess with the banks too much, you can start to have erosion because all the planting is messed up and you know, then you start to have these big carve outs where you see just huge swaths of dirt there and big erosion problems. So all these things we'll be looking at in more depth and providing what we hope to be a better, more specific code. But having said that, it probably will fall short of the best practices, which is what the comp plan talks about. So even when we have that in the code, we're still going to come forward to you when it comes to a PUD. We're always going to say, well, here's the best practice. The applicant, came forward with a PUD. Which is a negotiated zoning, so of course we're going to defer to our position, which is, well, here's what the best practice is. PUD is a give and take, as we all know. So even though we will have a better code in the future, we're still going to default to the comp plan because it's probably, you know, we're probably not going to get a code that's like the absolute best practice. It's going to be a compromise. So we'll still be referring to the comp plan when we come to PUDs and SPUDs. So obviously we'll have a lot more discussion about that hopefully soon because we need to be getting to that, to the kind of the green section of the code. And then the other thing I was going to mention, it's Ben's last planning commission. He is, I know, shocking, right? He's not going anywhere though. He is going to be taking over leadership of one of our other divisions and coming very soon, our Housing and Community Development Division. Chris Varga will be retiring in January. Ben's going to be taking that division over and learning the ropes. It's a big division. It's very complicated. There's a lot to learn, and Ben's looking forward to that, and it will be transitioning here very shortly. So, but we appreciate his all his work so far over the last 6 months-ish. And you'll probably be seeing more of him, just not as frequent. So,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Municipal Counselor's Office.
Nothing. Good
Nothing?
job with the gavel today.
Thank you.
Great job.
Any citizens to be heard? None? Other business?